The scene starts with Nina having a fun costume party with her daughters. The atmosphere is wholesome and fun. Shortly after, her husband Maciek arrives, grabs a snack from the fridge, and judges her outfit, commenting on how she looks better in gray. It's evident that their relationship is now devoid of passion. The next day at work, Nina is surprised to see her ex-boyfriend, Yanik. Turns out it's his first day at work, and they'll be seeing more of each other soon. Oh boy, looks like we know where this story is headed. We get a brief flashback of the time they first met years ago, and Nina was the one taking the lead, literally leading him to a secluded area to hook up. While they converse in the present regarding their work, we get a glimpse of how passionate they were in the past. At one point, Nina's co-worker Agnieszka butts in and starts hitting on Yanik. Feeling uneasy, Nina gently implies that she should be more professional. In reality, Nina seems to be feeling a little jealous. During her coffee break, Nina's daughter calls and reminds her of a special occasion that night. She calls her husband Maciek, asking for help picking up the kids, but he's also busy, so he suggests asking her mother instead. Despite Nina's objections, Maciek contacts his mother-in-law anyway. During Maciek's business meeting, we see him dining with a woman named Eliza, trying to convince her to become the CEO of his client's publishing company. Nina tries to pick her kids up from school, but only finds out her mom has already done so. When she arrives home, she finds her father there, ready to help out for the party. He expresses concern about how Nina seems to put more effort into the marriage, but she defends her husband, insisting their marriage is fine. During the celebration, Nina's mom delivers an inspiring speech about the strength of Nina and Maciek's marriage. Immediately after this, Maciek displays selfish behavior by blowing the cake's candles by himself, instead of with Nina. It looks like Nina's father's concern has a basis, after all. Later that night, Nina tries to initiate some lovemaking session with her husband, trying to reignite their passion. However, Maciek suggests they just do a quickie. Sadly, just before they start, their daughter walks in, asking to sleep in the same bed. This is probably a scene that many married couples can relate to. The next day, Nina arrives at work and makes small talk with Yanik. The way she looks at him indicates there's some dormant desire building deep within her. Later, they brainstorm ideas for their new show. They settle on the concept of the human body and how people tend to feel about their own bodies. In another quick flashback to when they were together, we learn that Yanik was a senior at college, while Nina was already a professional journalist. Looks like Yanik here was what the young ones like to call a hag maxer. Anyway, when Nina spills coffee at her desk, Yanik sees a photo of her family. She confirms that she has 2 daughters already, a fact that surprises Yanik. This triggers another bittersweet memory for Yanik, a time when he and Nina were deciding names for their future daughters. In another scene, Yanik's sister visits him to see how he's doing. When she tries to tease him by asking if he is in love, he straight up admits he is in love with an older married woman who already has 2 kids. Of course, his sister doesn't want him to become a hag maxer, especially if he's going to be a homewrecker at the same time. Yanik mentions he had once run away from this love before, triggering another flashback, one where they are dancing in front of a crowd for some reason. I have a feeling this movie is going to keep spamming flashbacks. Anyway, later that night, a tired Nina receives a text from Yanik. The message is related to their job, but the tone is flirtatious. Nina indulges him with replies, letting out a smile while doing so. The plot is now heading into dangerous territory. Maciek invites Nina to drink wine, announcing that he had secured a deal. When Nina suggests they go on a vacation during the weekend, Maciek insists they do this after his trip to Iceland, which is still in 2 months. An argument starts. Nina points out that Maciek can't just leave her to handle everything with the kids, especially since she has a new project starting at work. It's a valid point. The next morning, Nina's daughters greet her enthusiastically with breakfast. Maciek announces that he's going to take their daughters to his mom's place so Nina can rest. He's trying to make up for their argument. Nina is reluctant at first, not being a fan of her mother-in-law, but she agrees anyway. One day at work, Nina and Yanik are taking pictures for their new project. While goofing around, Yanik ends up being too close to her, so she warns him, saying he should be careful not to be swept away by the moment. Well, at least they're exerting self-control, for now. One day, Nina is supposed to be driving Maciek to the airport, bringing her daughters along. However, Maciek decides to have a last-minute change of plans. He's having his friend drive him instead, his excuse being he doesn't want to trouble Nina. He doesn't understand that he just ruined an important bonding moment for the family. Fast forward to another day, Nina and Yanik are having dinner at an outdoor restaurant. He offers her his coat when she starts feeling cold, and he even takes pictures of her, saying it's for their project. She also snaps a picture of him for her personal collection. Later that night before sleeping, they both look fondly at the photos they took. At work, the sexual tension continues to rise. But before it can implode, Nina receives an important call. She quickly rushes out of the office for what seems to be an emergency. At home, Nina calls her husband because she can't find the first aid kit. Her daughter is sick, and she needs to get meds. Maciek couldn't give a damn, insisting that Nina go figure it out by herself. Father of the year, folks. Meanwhile, Yanik is with Agnieszka, who is trying her hardest to seduce him. He's clearly not interested in her, since they're the same age. Her plans are interrupted when Nina calls Yanik, asking for help getting meds. Of course, he immediately leaves Agnieszka to go help the one he loves. Yanik arrives at Nina's home with the medicine. He even brought some snacks for the kids and food for Nina. The kids don't question why an unknown man is there helping their mother. That night, after helping out, Yanik glances at the tired, sleeping Nina for a moment before taking his leave. When she wakes up, there is dinner on the table for her, along with a note from Yanik. It says that if ever Nina needs help, she should call him, even at night. Meanwhile, the father of the year is in the middle of nowhere, camping, enjoying his peace. He's just a chill guy after all. The next day, Yanik comes back to Nina's place, bringing more snacks. He seems to be really concerned about Nina and her daughters, more concerned than Maciek, that's for sure. Before Yanik leaves, he almost kisses Nina. Fortunately, or perhaps unfortunately depending on whose perspective, a call interrupts the moment. It's from Maciek asking how things are going. When Nina passes the phone to her daughter Lena, the little girl immediately snitches. She tells her dad about Yanik's visits. Of course, Maciek asks Nina for an explanation, so she tells him he is just a work friend, a guy he shouldn't worry about. Then she abruptly hangs up. For a moment, Maciek thinks if he needs to be worried, but he just resumes taking pictures of the scenery, enjoying his vacation, as if he's a bachelor. One day, Nina's mother arrives at her place, livid that Nina asked for a stranger's help instead of her own mother's. Nina explains that she doesn't always see eye to eye with her, but the older woman refuses to hear her out. She's there to help as requested by Maciek. At work, Nina and Yanik can no longer contain their sinful passion. They make out inside the company elevator, and some of their co-workers even catch them in the act. As soon as she gets off the elevator, Maciek calls. He's expecting her to be mad at him, but she's not. Right now she feels something worse, indifference. In another scene, we see Nina sulking on the front porch. Her mother tries to talk to her, giving her some unsolicited advice. Nina is dismissive, acting like a rebellious teen who doesn't want to talk to her mom. The next day, while working, or so it seems, Yanik saves Nina from an oncoming reckless biker. He then invites her to his place, insisting that she sleep with him that night. She follows him to his abode, and the first thing she does is compliment his place, admitting that his place has the vibes she prefers. Of course, we know she's not there to comment on interior design. We can't show you what happens next, but it's easy to guess what they are doing. Later that night, Maciek calls his daughters and finds out that Nina has been working, even in the evening. Nina's excuse is that she can work late since her mom is there thanks to him. If not for the presence of their daughters, this married couple would be arguing again. After the call, Maciek is deep in thought, perhaps now realizing that something fishy is going on. In the next scene, Yanik and Nina are supposed to be working, but they take a detour and enjoy themselves in a spa instead. They snap pictures of each other while they're there. After the spa session, they hit the road and resume work. And by work I mean going on a walk near a lake, making out. They talk about an imaginary scenario, where they live in the meadows doing nothing but eat and fork. Yanik is serious about wanting to live with her and starting over, but Nina knows she can't restart her life with him. In the next scene, Nina cries on the porch, and her mother spots her. Unable to contain her emotions, she confesses about falling in love with another man. This is the first time Nina and her mother are shown having a positive interaction, albeit due to a not-so-positive situation. Nina's mother doesn't scold her. Rather, she chooses to hear her out and offer advice centered around preserving her family. Nina has a lot to think about. Whether she chooses to stay or not, she's not coming out unscathed, emotionally and mentally. The next day at work, Yanik reveals that he got an offer from another company that he applied for before. He explains that he's just keeping his options open regarding work. However, he didn't expect Nina to encourage him to take the offer and leave, adding how it would be better for them if he worked somewhere else. She admits that the situation is too much for her to handle, so they have to end their forbidden relationship. Meanwhile, in Iceland, Maciek comes across a lone trekker seeking shelter in his camp. This man shares his trouble about losing his girlfriend to cancer, wishing he had been a better partner. This encounter sends him into deep thought, perhaps thinking about his own relationship and how to not take it for granted. At Nina's office, we find out Yanik has already switched companies. Agnieszka walks over to Nina's table and makes a passive-aggressive statement about how Yanik's departure is a good outcome for everyone. Days later, Nina encounters her father while picking her kids up from school. They have a serious conversation about Nina's next important decision. He doesn't directly tell her what to do. Instead, he mentions how he was in a similar position a while back, but he chose to stay with his family. He adds that it doesn't have to be a complicated decision. The happiness of her children should come first. In the next scene, we find out what Nina decided on. She visits Yanik and continues her secret relationship with him. During their lovemaking session, somehow Nina accidentally dials Maciek's number and calls him, resulting in her husband hearing about her infidelity. Of course, this absolutely destroys Maciek. All he can do is run as far away from his phone as possible, only returning to it when he's already exhausted from running. Beyond livid, Maciek FaceTimes Nina, letting her know he heard her moans. Not knowing how to respond, she puts down her phone and begins crying. Maciek can't contain his emotions as well, breaking down while still on call. Nina rushes to Yanik's place, letting him know they've been found out. She plans to head to Iceland to talk to Maciek in person as soon as possible. In the next scene, we see Maciek near a cliff. He spots another man who has fallen, so he calls an emergency rescue team. Despite being told to stay put, Maciek decides to be a hero and go down to help the fallen man. Meanwhile, a member of the rescue team picks up Nina from the airport, informing her about the situation that Maciek is in. Returning to Maciek's situation, he ends up slipping while trying to climb back up. Now there are two of them that need to be rescued. While on the road, the female rescuer receives a call informing her of the accident. So, she relays the message to Nina and changes route, heading to the hospital instead. Upon reaching the hospital, Nina speaks with the doctor in charge of Maciek's treatment. She finds out he's in critical condition. Later, she observes Maciek as he lies in the hospital bed. Nina calls Yanik, informing him that she needs to stay in Iceland. Upset, Yanik asks if this is really her final decision. He hangs up after she says yes, not hearing her out further. Meanwhile, Nina continues to stay at the hospital, waiting for her husband to wake up. The following day, Nina gets a call from Yanik. He apologizes for his outburst the other night. Then, all of a sudden, he shows up behind her. When she asks what they should do next, Yanik does the right thing. Well, sort of. He tells her he's going to back away for the meantime, but will always be there for her if she needs him. This would have been a romantic statement if we ignored the context of the situation. One day, Maciek finally wakes up from his coma. The first thing he does is tell her how much he misses and loves her. Nina is not sure what to say. All she does is listen to her husband as he discovers how he can no longer feel his arm. Eventually, she tells him that things will be okay. The movie ends with Nina stepping out of the hospital to watch the waves, thinking about her life choices, and perhaps how her life is going to be moving forward.